I'd like to do a roll call just to see who's, make sure we know who's on the call, just to welcome them. This is Dave Dubois over in the New Mexico State.
Anne Marie Mathern, USGS.
Wayne Sleep, NRCS.
Les Owen, NMDA.
Ryan Ward, NMDA.
Mary Ewell, BLM.
Here at the weather office, we got myself, Chuck Jones, Sean Bennett, our MIC, and John here from the State Engineer's office, and Deirdre Kahn, our Science and Operations Officer, just walked into the room.
And I'm Rolf Schmidt-Peterson. I'm the Rio Grande Basin Manager for the Interstate Stream Commission.
Curtis McFadden, Army Corps of Engineers, Albuquerque District.
Emily Geary with the Drinking Water Bureau.
Okay, anybody else? Don't want to leave anybody out. All right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Yes?
Hey, Dave, can you hear me? It's Longworth.
Yes. Hi, John.
I have to interject. I think this is the first meeting in a long time, no press.
Really?
Really? Right? Is there any press on the phone? John, you there? Who?
Can you guys hear me?
Who's that?
This is Susan at AP.
Oh, hi, Susan.
Welcome, Susan.
Sorry, John.
Susan's getting the scoop today.
Susan, there's no water. I know that's a shock.
I think I have a story coming out today saying there's no water.
Yeah,
boy.
2 words. Okay, well, welcome everyone, and we got one more. Join us.
Yeah, John Pluck. Hi.
Hi, John. Well, the reason why we were made a noise is because John said he didn't hear anybody from the press on, and it would have been the first time in a long time. But then Susan came on, and then you came on, so
you're not getting away with it this time.
Not getting away. All right, I think Chuck has everything ready to go on his end. So we just went through the rounds, everybody. So let's go ahead and get started. It's according to my computer, it's 11 after. So let's get rolling. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, thanks. Carrie Jones just walked in too. You all know.
Hey, Carrie.
Sure. Yeah, no good news again this month, of course. Let's start by looking back at March. Statewide precipitation mostly below normal, especially over the west and the south. Portions, though, of the eastern plains did pretty well, especially around Tucumcari, above normal. And that was certainly welcome over there, but it's not necessarily the best place for the most moisture, but I'm certain they'll take that, and we will too. Ended up being the 14th driest, so it's still a pretty dry month for most of the state. Calendar year, January through March, only 52% of normal precipitation. Northeast Plains is doing the best, and that was, of course, because it's helpful there in March. Meanwhile, the southern deserts, Central Valley area, really this area right through here is doing poorly. It's only about a third of normal precipitation. And so January and March came in as the 31st driest. We've seen obviously worse figures in previous months. Water year, to go back to October 2012 through March, statewide average 47%, so that's a little bit worse than the annual average. The Northwest Plateau and Northeast Plains, 57%, that's the best we can come up with. And then again, the Central Valley and Southern Deserts right around just a quarter of normal precipitation if you look at the past, and that's 6 months now already into the water year. So not very good. And that ranks as the 15th driest on record for New Mexico, or the 6-month period. 71st coldest, so actually it's more on the warm side. And we've seen a lot higher numbers than that. 118 years. Last year it was 117, 118 over a big area of the country. So warm, but not exceptionally so for this water year. Okay, I'm going to show some additional slides here. We've seen a couple of these before. This is the past 12 months from April 2012 through March of 2013, showing the precipitation ranks since since the late 1800s, really. And we can see that currently we're in the second driest, with only the drought in the 1950s doing worse, and we're just edging out the early 1900s. Same thing for the 24-month period. If we go back 2 full years, we're looking at the second driest.
And drier than 50.
And actually drier than any 24-month period in the 50s. It's not quite as dry as the early 1900s. 36-month, okay, we're the 4th driest. It's still, we're still hanging in there with several years in the 50s, 3-year periods in the 50s, in the early 1900s. If you recall, we were showing this slide 3 or 4 months ago. We weren't the 4th driest. It was 10th or something like that. So we're edging closer towards this dry period of the 50s. If we look at the 48-month period, 4 years consecutively, 7th driest. And now we see we fall behind quite a bit for 4 different 4-year periods in the mid and late 50s. So, but unfortunately, we're getting closer, and that's not good news. Here's another way of this showing the same thing. Now, these are the same rank, 2nd, 4th, and 7th. But I wanted to show just how much below normal the average precipitation was for the state. And this value, let's take this 3-year value of 10.23. That's an average for every site that the National Climatic Data Center uses in New Mexico. And I don't know what stations they use or how many they have, but we're using over 100. So that could be for quite a bit of station. That's over a year's worth for here in Albuquerque. So in 3 years, we're more than a year below average precipitation, if you kind of say it that way. And then I went ahead and looked up some deficits for the last 2.5 years. I used October 2010. That's when La Nina really kicked in. That's when the drought really started to show itself. And we've been in that La Nina pattern for a couple of years, and now a neutral condition right now. But over this last 2.5 years, here's some precipitation deficits that we're looking at. And Albuquerque happens to be right around that average. That was a 3-year average, but these are 2.5-year averages. There's some huge deficits there. Most of these under 50% of normal precipitation over a long period. But what I'm getting at is we're really, it's not just a short-term drought. This is a long-term drought that we're in, and it's pretty severe, as you all know. But I just kind of wanted to emphasize that today. And we have even some more slides here talk about some soil moisture, and I'm going to have Dee talk about that here in just a second. But on this side, you can see the last 3 years, right around the time that we're at now. What was our drought conditions at the time? And this is 2 years ago in 2011. This is last year, and this is the current year. And overall, it's worse over northern and central and part of southern New Mexico. It is better down here in the southeast. It has gotten better. But it's definitely gotten worse in much of the west. Not quite as bad in portions of the south, especially the southeast. And actually, I think Dee is going to maybe tie that in a little bit here to show this reflection on the next slide or two.
I'm sorry, but you did say that was 10 years? The drought?
What do you mean by 10 years?
Yeah, you said we've been in 10 years?
No. Really 3 or 4 years, especially the last 2.5 years.
Right, okay. Sorry about that.
Well, I was doing some work with our fire weather focal point too, the IMET, and I look at the Palmer Drought Severity Index a lot following this drought, and so I knew our stats for eastern New Mexico were just terrible, comparable to the 1950s drought. So I wanted to look at some soil moisture and see if it would help us kind of quantify the severity and the conditions the state is under as well. We have a soil network, and you can see in the map below the different sites, and a lot of these sites only start data in 2010, the things I was looking at for the fire weather. But this Crossroads site has data going back to March of 2005. And so they take a lot of measurements. It's a climate and a soil site. But they take measurements at 2 inches, 4 inches, 8 inches, 20 inches, and then I think even 40 and 80 inches below the ground. And of course, if you look at those top layers, you see a lot of variation based on precipitation. But I thought, well, let's look at this 20-inch depth and see if we can tie that into some of these drought conditions. And the only eastern location we have is right down here where we noted, as Chuck said, some improvement of recent. But if you look at these values, and they're daily values I've plotted up here, and there's a fair amount of missing data, but we can see how the soil responds. Here's the 2006 record monsoon, and in 2007 we had a really wet spring, 200 to 300% of normal when we look back at that. And so, unfortunately, we're missing data from late 2010 when we'd really like to see this start until early 2011. But, I mean, if you just look back at the past couple of years, 20 inches down the soil at this Crossroads site, there's just been no kind of recharge of moisture, and I think it's just an indication of how bad it is. But really, when I got started, what I was kind of hoping to see was that I knew we had these kind of near record values of Palmer Drought Severity Index. So on this, the bottom part of this graph is the Palmer Drought Severity Index, and positive values are wet periods, and the more negative we get into drought periods, and anything generally below -2 or -2.5 is considered drought. So I knew from tracking this that in the east we had some values, -7, that exceeded what we even saw in the 50s. So I was wondering that if I looked at monthly averages of the soil moisture, if we would see also very, very record dry values. And they weren't as horrible as I thought they would be. So if you take the correlation coefficient of these two lines, here's our soil moisture, again at the 20 inches, and the Palmer Drought Severity Index, I get a correlation just over 0.5. So definitely we're seeing some similarities here, but and again, we're not seeing any little recharge in the 20-inch soil depth. But interesting to note that it has been low for quite a while, although not the driest value since 2005, and that's as far back as we can go. My guess is that if we had a value up near Tucumcari, we might see a little bit more what I was looking at. So I know Carrie and I have been talking to the ranchers, and that's one thing that kind of got me interested in that, to just see if there was some way we could quantify the condition of the soil, and not surprisingly, it's pretty bad. Okay, thanks, Chuck.
All right, so let's go to a more current situation right now. This is the first 20 days in April. This time, the Northwest is doing pretty well, and that was thanks to the storm on the 8th and to the 10th. did pretty well across the west, and especially northwest. A little bit into the northern mountains, but the rest of the state not too good, and many places basically haven't had any precipitation at all so far this month. Again, no really great news here so far for the first 3 weeks or so of April. Latest drought status from last week, not too much different than it was the previous month. We'll see that here in a little bit. We do have extreme to exceptional drought over portions of northeast and east central New Mexico, and then moderate to severe drought just about everywhere else except again down here in the far southeast. And we're getting up close to 99% of the state in at least moderate drought or worse. So yeah, 1 month change. We can see a little bit more westward extension here in the western and northwest part of New Mexico, and a little bit more down here in the south central as well, to Otero County and in the southwest mountains of Chavez County. If we look at the 3 month change, we can really see some lessening in the drought in the northwest, but many other areas, especially eastern and central portions of the state, having gotten worse. 94% of the state is severe or worse drought, and again, almost 99% moderate or worse. And just to make our point stronger here, the model consensus continues to indicate neutral conditions are most likely to continue through the rest of the spring, summer, and even the fall. It's interesting, though, the one that came out before this had nearly all three of these values the same. So this is the time of year where the models do the worst, the worst forecasting, and they tend to bounce around from prediction to prediction in the springtime. As we go through the summer and get to the fall, hopefully we will see a good solid trend that will we can maybe hang our hats on. So let's see what the Climate Prediction Center folks are suggesting for the rest of the spring and the monsoon season here. This is actually encouraging, where there's no strong signal to support whether we're going to have above normal, near normal, or below normal. So with no strong signal or indication, they're saying equal chances of any of those three. Different story, though, with temperatures. You can just picture this A, B, and an H, and a big old high pressure center out here over Utah, baking the southwest. And so odds are favoring pretty strongly above normal temperatures, especially northwest New Mexico. As we get into the May, June, July period, going from spring into summer, they're starting to indicate odds favoring below normal precipitation for virtually all of New Mexico. Best signal may be up toward the north border. There's our big ol' A again. Very strongly tilted toward above normal temperatures for all of New Mexico, all the southwest, and a good chunk of the country for that matter. And then I just threw in here, I made them smaller so they don't look quite so bad. The June, August period, monsoon time for the most part. This time has shifted the favorable below normal odds maybe more toward the northeast part of the state. Weak signal there, perhaps below normal precipitation, favoring the east and northeast. And then this big old above normal temperature expectations here overall in New Mexico. And so the seasonal drought outlook, of course, April through July now, pretty much status quo, except some development perhaps in the southeast. And now maybe they're getting a little some improvement there in the northeast. Yeah.
Oh, close.
Yeah. Well, I won't go into that, but
What was Klaus saying?
I don't think we can share that.
yeah, we won't get into that.
We can talk about shares that.
Kids shared this graphic in the last couple of years. I added 2012 to it. This shows what was the precipitation across our 8 climate divisions across New Mexico after we've had a poor spring runoff and snowpack. And we had that 2006 year, and we had a record benchmark year for precipitation. It was 161% of normal. This is June through August, 3-month period. And so we were pretty confident the last couple of years of saying, well, you know, odds favor near or above normal precipitation. You know, all the years, all 16 of these years, the average is 107%. And these were all years that had below normal snowpack. So we were fairly confident that we'd be at least near normal, if not above normal. And as you can see, the last 2 years, 61 and 60%. It was a pretty sporadic, spotty monsoon season. But overall, obviously below normal. So again, 11 of these 16 summers saw precipitation near or anywhere from near to above to well above normal. And 107% of average for all 16 of these years. And 5 of them were, you know, over 134% or more above normal statewide precip. And then there was just the 5 years there where we saw significantly below, but it's been the last 2 years, last 2 summers. And then, of course, 2006 was a banner year for us. But just based on this study, we would think, you know, we'd have a normal or even a wetter than normal monsoon season coming up, but I'm not going out to say that just because of what's happened the last 2 years. It's going to have to be a wait and see type thing. You would think, you know, we're due based on these statistics of getting near to above normal monsoon season, but don't put any money on it. And just for you allergy sufferers, not everybody minds the pollen count too. That's it. Sorry for the length today. We got a lot of slides in there.
Thanks, Chuck. Any questions?
You all asleep, or are you just devastated, or?
We're stunned.
We're in shock.
Yeah, in shock. All right. Well, if anybody thinks of anything, he could chime in. But let's go over Ray's presentation.
Sure. I'm gonna start on the Rio Grande Petoro storage.
Well, I didn't receive anything, at least up until like 15 minutes before the meeting. Did you send something, Ray?
No, I just normally read it.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry about that. So I'll just read. Petoro is 8,914 acre feet. Heron is 138,295 acre feet. Elvado is 31,848. Abiquiu 155,304. Cochiti 48,918. Elephant Butte 222,529. And Caballo 10,312 acre feet. And in the Rio Grande, right now the district is just using the run of the river, so they're a real tight rotation. Just water on the east side and then switch everything to the west side. They're going to try to do that as long as possible before using water from storage. We've been kind of seeing La Puente, you know, our inflow into Elvado kind of just up and down with these cold spells. and these storms come through, so it starts to come up and then go back down, and basically that's what we're doing, is just bypassing that out of a lotto as it comes in to help out with the irrigation. We are releasing water for the endangered species. It ranges between 250, 300 CFS. The district right now is kind of looking at maybe they'll be able to make it through July, possibly, with their stored water, and then from there they'll just have to see what they can do. On the Pecos, Santa Rosa is 2,745 acre feet. Sumner, 5,462. Brantley, 9,988. And Avalon, 1,584. Pretty much the whole basin there at Wesner is melted out, and not one drop came into Santa Rosa. As you can see, Pecos got up somewhere around maybe in the 80s, and you never saw it reach Anton Chico or Cañon de Uta gauge, much less above Santa Rosa gauge. There was like 0.3 the last we looked of inches. We can see it there on the screen there, and not one drop has made it into Santa Rosa. So we're not going to catch any break on that this year at all. There's not going to be any inflow from the runoff to Santa Rosa. Right now, as it is, Carlsbad Irrigation District, they're releasing water out of Brantley for irrigation in the Carlsbad area, and with what they have in storage, they've got about 25 days of irrigation left for the season. That's pretty bleak if it's just April and they only have 25 days of water. But Fort Sumner Irrigation District, they are irrigating, but yet their allotments are pretty low. So right now it's about 74 CFS. So that's where we stand. We'll just see how we do for the season there. It's going to be very, very rough. Any questions? Okay, thank you. About
Ray?
a week is the weather
Ray
forecast.
Longworth, you mentioned you're releasing water for ESA in the Rio Grande 250 plus. What have you guys put together anything on the Pecos?
As far as what we're releasing,
Well, I mean, just the last time I think I don't know if it was the last meeting or the last couple meetings, we were pretty concerned about we sort of had exhausted all options. There's no inflow from the runoff. Just curious where you guys are at in terms of trying to get ESA augmentations. If you've secured leases,
we have. Right now we're under a fallow agreement with Fort Sumner Irrigation District, and they went in and fallowed some land. So at the moment we're getting a percentage of their allotment. So at this rate, it's about 8-9 CFS. They're bypassing to the river. So we're trying to see how long we can go with that. I mean, it'll be as long as they're irrigating, but we'll see how many miles we can get out of that. And but we do have 1,000 acre feet in storage in Sumner that we can use, and we haven't hit that yet. We have 2,500 acre feet of forbearance water from FSID, and we have about 1,575 acre feet from the Vaughan pipeline. So those are all intact, and we haven't used those yet. So those three pots of water we'll use in the season, later in the season, to try to get the whole duration. We're not sure what we'll set the release at, but but we'll figure out how much we'll need to try to get to the whole season, and then we'll just see how many miles we can get out of it. We don't have enough to keep the river continuous, so it's bank storage and the groundwater has just been getting worse and worse. I mean, just as the plot they showed earlier, it's been taking more and more to try to keep the river continuous, and we just don't have that kind of water. But we do have those 3 pots along with the fallowing fallowing water that's being bypassed right now. So yeah, we do have some waters in place for that. Does that help out?
All right, thanks. That was a great explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Ray, this is Dave. Do you know the release date of Caballo?
The release date?
Yeah. I've been getting questions about that. When Elephant Butte?
Yeah, I have not
Would be
heard
ready.
when they're gonna. They've been trying to put that off. I'm not sure.
You said sometime in June, right?
Yeah.
Ray, this is Ralph. The last I heard was right around Memorial Day or June 1 is when they begin releases.
Okay.
They're supposed to be having a series of grower meetings starting, I believe, next week. And right now, yeah, EBID is looking at like a 3.2 to 3.6 inch allotment beginning sometime in June.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, there you go. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Wayne is on the line.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, welcome, Wayne. Let's go through your NRCS report.
All right. Well, I think most of you guys have heard my bad news enough. Snowpack this year was well below normal in virtually all basins in the state. We didn't really ever reach peak levels or near peak levels at any sites, and we've had an earlier than normal meltout. As you kind of scan through that report, you can see that most basins are below 50% of normal for now. The upper Rio Grande's about 70%. All those sites are in southern Colorado, and everything else is down. Same thing, the Animas Basin is closer to 70% in San Juan headwaters, but those are also all Colorado sites. Everything in New Mexico is below 50. It's really not, as was mentioned, as Ray mentioned, we're seeing these sites melt out and not really seeing any peaks in stream flow to speak of, nothing that would correlate with the amount of snow water that's melting out on these sites. So it's, runoff is just pretty much non-existent, and it looks like that's going to be the pattern as we continue to melt some of these other sites out. The best hope would be some of these southern Colorado sites providing some water coming our direction, but even that, with the management decisions that are being made, may not have a huge benefit. So I guess, basically we're just looking at dry conditions snowpack-wise and runoff-wise, and that's kind of the main theme. It's been hammered around. Chuck's talked about all the lead up to that, and it's, I really don't have much more to add, honestly. Any questions? The other report I sent out is just the update, the West-wide update weekly report, and I don't think there's any need to go through that. A lot of that's just the drought stuff that Chuck covered in his. So.
Yeah, and with what Wayne was saying about the Colorado, they made their deliveries already to New Mexico. So I guess, what is it, 10%, Ralph, that we'll see of the upper Rio Grande gauges?
Ray, I heard 0% of the canals, they're done.
Okay, so they are done.
And 6% of the main stem.
Yeah, so we're not going to get any more help from Colorado. They're already done. So they're taking everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so the only thing we have, if we get anything, is La Puente above Ovado, and Heron inflo's pretty much played out, and then the Sangres. But, well, that's, I don't even have hope in the Sangres, so.
We're not seeing anything popping up off the Sangres. I mean, Embudo, Dixon there, the gauge there is showing like 6 CFSs. There's nothing coming off.
Yeah, Hemis melted off. We didn't see anything. Of course, Wesner, nothing. So more than likely the Sangres will probably do the same.
I think what we're seeing is the result of the dry fall we had last year going into the snow season. The monsoon season was pretty spotty and generally lower than normal, and then we didn't really get any of the September, October, early November rain that we sometimes get. And so all the snow that fell on dry soil, and I think we're seeing a lot more infiltration this year into the soil than we normally would. And that's not reflected real well in our runoff models. We pick it up a little bit with the year-to-date precipitation going into the modeling, but I think we're losing even more than we would expect. So our runoff forecasts have dropped pretty significantly over the last couple months, and I don't expect to see them probably even meet the April 1 levels.
I was going to ask Wayne, this Longworth, you guys dropped off pretty significantly from March to April. Do you expect similar kind of drop off or about the same numbers? I mean, we're 6 days out. Just curious as to what your gut might be.
I think we'll see them drop pretty significantly. It looked like, I did a little digging, and it looks like our April 1 forecasts were about 70% exceedance levels on March 1. And I wouldn't be surprised if the May 1 forecasts are similar to the 70% exceedance on April 1. So I don't know that for sure, but that's just kind of what I would expect. Because we're seeing quite a bit drier than normal precip conditions throughout the month as we're going through, and when that's combined with the drier year-to-date, I think that's going to have those numbers drop even more. So if you look at the 70% April 1, that's, I'm guessing, somewhere where the May 1 will come in. And that's really very little water at most sites. We almost get into negative flows when you start looking at San Marcial on 70% April 1.
This is Curtis McFadden at the Corps, and I just came back from a Navajo operations meeting, and this is just to discuss what I saw at the San Juan. They had similar snowpack in the San Juan from last year, but because the snow conditions was actually delayed, that's the positive thing, but the soil conditions are so dry, they were hoping to at least get what they got last year. If not, they're looking at a bad situation this upcoming year. They'll be hitting at the hard mark of not delivering water to Navajo next year by March. So hopefully we can get some more snow and monsoon rains, or Navajo operation is going to be hurting next year as well, and that's for the San Juan.
Really, at this point, best case scenario for runoff is we turn off real warm for a period of time and melt snow fast. That's going to be our best bet for getting runoff into the streams, is try to melt it off fast enough that it doesn't have time to infiltrate. And that's not a great situation, but from a runoff perspective, that's kind of what we're going to have to hope for this year. Otherwise, I think we're going to see levels pretty significantly below last year, even in the San Juan.
Yeah, it's
Chuck,
pretty
what were
dire out
those,
there.
what were those charts you're showing us before?
Normal temperatures.
Yeah, there we go, man. We're getting there.
So sorry about that. I just had to put my 2 cents in on the San Juan. They looking pretty dry as well.
So Wayne, so that's pretty much what was discussed at the Rio Grande runoff meeting. I was wanting to go to that, but I couldn't make it.
That was the majority of the discussion revolved around how last year's forecast played out, which was fairly close. The April 1 forecasts were fairly close. Then looking at this year's, we kind of saw that sharp drop from March 1st to April 1st and had some discussion on that. We had some water managers gave discussions on how they're planning on operations this year, and that was pretty much the gist. Ray covered part of that, and Rolf has mentioned a few things. So that meeting didn't bring up any surprises, I guess you would say. It's pretty much been covered.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'd ask one question, maybe of Chuck and others. I'm kind of interested that this, we don't have that much snow in the basin, but we do have some up high, and we're seeing some come off on the Chama. But this kind of series of storms that we've had that are not putting a whole lot of snow on, but keeping things cool, is kind of interesting to me this year, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are for the next 3 weeks or so. We're going to keep on getting that, or we're going to warm up?
I know there's a decent system coming across the Four Corners area tomorrow. It's going to keep us on the cool side for at least a couple days, but I've been off for a few days, so I haven't looked at the extended too much. But
Next week.
and then I guess early next week there's another storm. So it looks like we'll keep up this pattern of at least getting some systems to come in with some moisture. It's actually been we're about 1 degree above normal still actually here this month. It doesn't seem like it. I think it's because it was so warm the last couple of Aprils, but the east now, the northeast, has been very, very cool. Clayton, 6 degrees below normal, but it's been close to normal here.
Okay. Hey, Ray, this is Longworth real quick. My understanding is that you guys have cut off the concern about reducing San Juan Chama allotments. Has these forecasts changed that, number one, and number two, are we in the clear on that?
I think as the water is available, as we start getting water into Heron, we'll probably make those allotments whole. That's
So there's still a, I'm sorry, there's still a 20% reduction?
Consensus of the contractors. They all have to be in agreement to take a shortage on this and they weren't. So we're going to get ahead as the water comes into Heron and make their allotments whole. But that will kind of short it for next year if we don't get a good year.
So it's still in flux at this point.
Yeah, because the diversions really haven't started kicking in yet.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just checking in on that because I know it's kind of big news.
We're going to have to see how that plays out too. It's further north and in Colorado, so hopefully it'll do better than what we've seen down here. But yeah, if the water is made available through the tunnels, then that's the word. We'll make everyone whole.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's move on to Anne Marie, the USGS report.
Okay, I sent the report probably maybe 9:30 or so. I don't know if you received it or not.
That one I did not grab, but we're
Okay,
getting it here
that's
real
fine.
quick.
I'll just talk it through. The report consists of records from 21 river basins in New Mexico that are representative of relatively unmanaged natural flow conditions. They are primarily focused on the north central part of the state, just because that's where those gauges are, and comparing conditions for the water year, so October through the end of March. April's not included in this, and compared to the historic average for each one of those stations. The San Juan Basin is represented by the station on the Animas River, and that's at 59% of average. A series of 5 Upper Rio Grande tributaries range from 50 to 81% of average, and Rio Ojo Caliente at La Madera is that station with the highest the 81%, which is the highest that we have out of those 21 stations. Jemez River is at 53% of average. The Upper Rio Grande main stem, Rio Grande at Taos Junction Bridge is at 50% of historic average. Canadian River Basin, the tributaries in Colfax County, 15 to 63% of average. In Mora County, 10 to 22% of average. And the main stem station is at about 1% of historic average. Upper Pecos, San Miguel County, we have Pecos River at Pecos and Gallinas at Montezuma, and those are at 70 and 34% of average. Lower Pecos, Otero and Eddy counties, that would be numbers 16, 17, and 18, and those have stream flow conditions 16 to 50% of average. And last two sites, the Gila Basin, Moyan Creek is at 33% of average, and the Gila River at Red Rock is at 39% of average. And most of those have been holding pretty steady since last month, and nothing seems to be going up much. So that's all I have for this report, unless there are any questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Okay, any other questions? If not, John Longworth for the State Engineers Report.
Sure. As you guys know, I generally steal everybody else's stuff and just bring it to try to summarize. And that purpose is because I end up having to do presentations for a lot of different groups, and so I like to be able to go through and kind of present your guys' data and make sure there's no problems with it, and then try to add a couple of other metrics to just keep it interesting. And this is a work in progress. I will start with a note, and Wayne, I know this is not your fault, but yesterday afternoon the NRCS site went down in terms of I couldn't get data from it at all, and I couldn't get, and this morning I couldn't get on. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to present the data that I should have presented last time before the legislative session, but I think not much has changed. I do have some new data from some other stuff. So with those caveats, let's move on.
If you have specific reports that you would like, I was just looking back through our email from this morning. I guess we're having access issues with non-gov access, but I'm not having the same issues. So if you need something updated sent to you, just email me what you want and I'll send it to you.
I appreciate that, Wayne. I will, maybe when I get back to my office, give you a call so I can update this to the current data. I couldn't get on to the map site. I couldn't get on to the Snowtel site. I couldn't get on to the storage site. So yeah, it was weird. It's like the homepage works, but once you start trying to get to actual databases, it seems that something broke down. Anyway, so real quick, the legend here for everybody. This red line is average. Again, this data comes from NRCS. And I can't remember, Wayne, if the current stuff is median or average. I think it's median now, isn't it? For storage?
On reservoir storage, I believe it did switch to median.
So
actually, reservoir storage is average. The only thing that switched to median was SWE, snow water equivalent.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. All right, good. So I don't have to update this. So that's average over the last 30 years. The blue will be what the current storage is, and the brown would be the storage this time last year. And so I'll try to go through this real quick. I mean, we talked about Navajo. Last year was about average. Lost a whole bunch to where we are this year, and I think the Corps chimed in. And I forget the level. The level's somewhere around 400,000 acre feet. Does that make sense to the Corps rep as to where we start getting into Navajo op problems? Hello?
Yeah. No? Sorry, I had you on mute. Yes, that is correct.
So it's about 400,000 acre feet. So that's sort of, in terms of monitoring, this, when we start getting down to here, we'll be hearing more and more about the San Juan River and some of the
concerns up there in terms of that operation. So we'll be obviously watching that this season. Moving on to the Pecos, nothing new there. We're about half of was last year. You know, again, just striking how far off we are, how dry. This is the snow water equivalent up through the end of last month, and we've seen that. But I was able to pull down, I gotta be honest, I love this slide. I was able to pull down something yesterday before we went offline. And this is just a time series illustration of kind of what we were talking about. Sorry, it was in black and white, but that's my printer. And so the snow water equivalent, 81 through 2010 median, that's this dark line right here. And we can see the peak, you know, the peaks were corresponded pretty well. This line right down here is the snow water equivalent for 2013. But obviously well off of median averages, which I think is really an important distinction between average. You're really taking out that weighting of heavy snow years and light snow years. So that's, I think, a good comparison. And as we all know, it's melted out, and my guess is that's roughly a month early. So it's just a little different way of kind of looking at the same data. And I've got a couple more of these. So I kind of characterize this, you know, we're at about 11,000 feet and a little bit lower latitude. So kind of working our way up the state. That just gives us a sense. Of course, living in Santa Fe, we look up on the hill, there's still some snow up there. So there's still snow. Obviously, this is just a point measurement. But, you know, obviously this is an important one, and it's not pretty. Moving on down, this summer number is obviously, let's see, it was 10, I forget the number. This is pre-block release, so I wasn't able to update the number to the current block release. We're at 5 now, which is where we were last year, so that's just a little artifact of sort of the data collection issues. I'm going to put the groundwater here. I was going to take this out, leave it in, take it out, leave it in. I don't know, but I left it in, and this is our you know, shallow alluvium. What do we have? 231 feet. Groundwater levels. This goes just up to 2012. So there's the GS sites are great data when you can find it, but it's sometimes difficult to find that data quickly. And unfortunately, my job is one where speed is of the utmost importance. But the trend is not going to change. It's just whether it got worse. Since 2000, we're seeing this going down. I bring this up of importance to those who are unaware. There is controversy on the Pecos, and it has to do with the pumping that's in this area, shallow pumping, with regards to some senior surface water downstream.
John, this is John Fleck. Is that a river aquifer, shallow alluvium along the river, or is that down in the artesian?
And, let me go back. So this is, and I can send you this if you would like, this is alluvium, bolson deposits and other surface deposits.
Okay,
it's
got it.
Well depth
okay.
231 feet. I don't have the well log specifically on this one other than that information, though I would look at their number on here. Maybe that would give us the number of, the number of the wells there. I can get that down real quick. Just kidding.
Okay, I'll track it down, thanks.
But point is this is shallow. This is not an artesian well. However, when we look, this has a nested area. There's a couple nests around. There's a very similar trend. It's just depth to waters is much less. But this is a shallow well in approximately, I'm looking at Lila, that would be just in the Hagerman area. Roswell's up here somewhere. Yeah, maybe Hagerman, Dexter kind of thing. So this is one of the heavier ag areas north of Artesia, which would be right in here. Cottonwood draw areas in here is pretty significant. So this is the Hagerman, Dexter area, a little bit of Lake Arthur. So does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, that's helpful, thanks.
And then getting down to sort of the end of the pipe here, Brantley, again, let's see, at 5. So this, again, pre-block release, apologize for that. That's up to, what we say, 9 or something like that now, somewhere in here. And they're drawing water off. So I think it's interesting. It's at 9, so about 5 less than last year. It's kind of just funny how small these levels are, but normally you would expect to see something more in this range. It's a tough situation for the irrigators down there. And just as you guys know, a little added interest here, the Pecos River settlement targets. One of the targets is reservoir storage and quote-unquote Brantley equivalent, and the settlement parties have a spreadsheet that they'll agree on as a way of taking Santa Rosa water, taking Sumner water, accounting for losses, and to make it into a Brantley equivalent storage. By March 1st, we were supposed to have 50,000 acre feet as the settlement target. By May 1st, which is, I think, a couple of days away, we were looking to have 60,000 acre feet. So the current May 1 projections, which had started with March 1 storage, and assumed hydrologic average conditions, which I think, as Wayne said, maybe we're at the 70% exceedance, not 50. We were looking at 23,000 acre feet in terms of Brantley equivalent, which meant groundwater augmentation pumping under the settlement at 37,000 acre feet in an extraordinarily short period of time. Probably a pretty good chance that's not going to occur, and I'm being a little facetious there. That's obviously not going to occur. We're way, this drought is just way out of really what the study period was when we started figuring this stuff out. So, point of interest, but the good news is, everybody asks for good news, is our compact deliveries on the Pecos have remained. We have about 100,000 acre foot credit. For those who don't know, the state of New Mexico was sued by the great state of Texas some time ago regarding compact issues, and the Supreme Court said that, well, for whatever reason, you can't go below the 0 line. So this is treacherous territory for the state of New Mexico, and we're well far away from that. Of course, the downside of this is we're concerned about if and when it starts raining again. The way the compact calculations occur, this credit water may start, we may start getting into that. But that's for hopefully next spring. Okay, going into the Rio Grande, we've spoken about these. I think these numbers are pretty stable. Might be a little bit higher there. I think Ray gave 138. So yeah, it's about maybe a little bit lower than that. So we're off a little bit on that. Not a whole lot of water in Hearn right now. El Vado at about 20, 31. So caught a little bit from last month, but way off from average, way off from last year. Abiquiu is at 155, so a little bit lower than that. Looks like we dropped some water off that, but those are pretty close. Snowtel. So this goes to Ross Point, about sort of some of the higher elevation snow. This was towards the beginning of this month, and I've got another one of these things. So this is slightly, I say higher elevation, slightly higher latitude, 10,000 feet. Peaked a little bit earlier than on the median. We're starting to see this drop down again. Snow water equivalent, the medians are there. This is the current year. Way off of sort of the current median. I don't know what's that, 17 down to 7.5, so 10 inches off. So that's not good. But they're starting to come off, and maybe it looks like if you were to linearly extrapolate, we'll end a couple weeks early. So there's a little snow up there. Going to Chimita again, we had that little bump towards the end of March last month, but going to the hand chart, we get to the lower elevation, 8,400, and that looks like that's melted out. And I think that is consistent. Maybe those numbers are a little bit different, but again, whatever, a little bit before May, right around April, so about a 3-week early melt out, well below 10 to 6, so 60% of snowpack. And of course, just to reiterate, none of it seems to be making it into storage. So fabulous on that. Elephant Butte, I think we're at 220 there, 222. So we've got to update that, but just more or less same story there. Caballos, and there's nothing in Caballo, and down there. So we'll close with groundwater. This is the groundwater slide that I've had in the past, and so I just wanted to point out groundwater level. This is mid-Rincon Valley. This values in here are the old Rincon well. The well was updated and re-drilled, and so this is newer. It's a different well, but it's essentially in the same location. We can see some pretty low levels, and that goes into earlier this year. So we're between 90 and 95. We updated that a little bit to current, so we saw some rebound maybe over the winter. I guess these are last fall. Got up to 95, but now the latest data is right back down to the middle, and we're just starting the season. So we can see this trend has started again, and obviously we expect that groundwater pumping to continue. Then the last one we have here, this is sort of the heart of the Mesilla Valley. This time, I can't remember the timing on this one, I guess it was in the fall. We were between 35 and 40, and now we're dipping below 35. So we've lost another couple feet during the last year. Not a big surprise, but actually this is a pretty, from a groundwater perspective, this is kind of really notable that you can see such immediate impact. Now, the hope is that it will respond in the same kind of way if and when it starts raining again. But, when we look at 2006, I think it's an interesting time. We had great monsoons, and the place was flooded. We saw a little bit of a spike there, but that's what we're banking on. We're in trouble. So webpage, Drought State, or www.nm Drought State, NMUS. And again, I apologize for the data. I had some hard times. Obviously, yesterday afternoon, about 3 I could get in, but any time after that to this morning I couldn't update the data, so I apologize for that. But we had the hand-drawn ones for a little different view. And that, if there's any questions, I'm certainly available. Thanks.
So any questions for John? All right, I don't hear any. So thank you, John. Appreciate it. So Les and Ryan, you're on for NMDA.
Yeah, good morning. There's no surprises since they started the crop and weather reporting for the year. It's topsoil moisture is very short, so range conditions are terrible. Dryland winter wheat's pretty much non-existent on the eastern side of the state. A lot of it didn't even provide any grazing for stalker cattle. Very few people are purchasing stalker cattle to bring into the state for to put some pounds on them and try and make a little money. People are continuing to liquidate their herds. The ones that actually have any herds of cattle left, anyways. We all saw the January cattle inventory numbers again set a record low since they've started keeping that data. Just some other information that kind of feeds along this. I was at a meeting with the Las Cruces BLM yesterday, and their first quarterly billing for animal unit months or grazing on the federal lands in that part of the state was 84% of non-use, meaning that only 16% of the normal number of cattle are actually being grazed at this point for 2013. So that kind of paints the grim picture for the range livestock industry anyways. And so that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to try and answer them, but no need to keep kicking the dirt.
You said 15%?
16. They're at 84% non-use, so they're at 16% of full allotment numbers, basically. So.
Wow. Not a lot of cattle out there.
No, there's not. It's and I mean it's kind of the BLM has not imposed any reductions. This is, the ranchers that manage these federal grazing allotments manage the land, so they're doing this on their own to take care of the land. So it's a testament to the management abilities of ranchers in New Mexico, and it definitely shows how dreadfully dry it has been.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
So any more questions for Les? All right. Thank you, Les. And I don't know if Joylyn or Emelita had called in or not. Are you there? I don't hear anything. I don't believe we got anything. Is that right, Chuck?
No, I don't remember seeing anything.
Okay.
I don't know if he's checked now.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dee. So any other questions that anybody has on the call about what we talked about, or any other questions, announcements?
I just wanted to clarify on the San Juan. I apologize. Just in case it gets out in the news, I know you guys are doing your job and stuff, but what the San Juan was predicting at the worst case scenario, if we get to see the same conditions continue all the way until March of next year, their allotment and operation at Navajo will be very restrictive next year. But we're hopefully not going to see that this year. Just in case, to clarify, I don't want the Bureau folks up in Durango getting mad at me.
Was that Curtis?
Huh? I'm sorry?
Was that Curtis speaking?
Yes, this is Curtis McFadden. Sorry.
This is John Fleck, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that just in case, so the folks in Durango be like, no, that's not what we said. That is the worst case scenario, is what they plotted yesterday. And that's actually on their website, their presentation as well.
Dave, I have, we talked about it, but I guess we should talk a little bit just real quick so people know. We have a drought task force meeting on the 29th from 1:30 to 4:30. That will be in the Brown House somewhere. So it hasn't been determined.
Okay.
So I think Chuck, Dave, and me will do our little show. Other than that, there's nothing. I mean, there's a legislative update, and maybe I take the discussion item of sort of a roundtable discussion, but that's about at this point. We're still looking at the agenda to see if there's maybe anything else. So just an FYI on that. If anybody's so inclined, not sure if it's going to be webcast or not. That's out of my control. So, okay, so that's been scheduled. So there should be some sort of webcast. Maybe we can distribute that to this group. If that, once we get the room, and also, but it'll probably be coming like Monday morning.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. There's no questions.
All right. Anything else of noteworthy, or not? Okay. Well, then I propose we should schedule the next call, and that would be in May. And looking at I know we like to wait for the CPC updates on the third Thursday of the month, and the third Thursday Yes,
That'll be the 16th.
that's correct. So the only time I'm not available is the 23rd. So anytime, I think we should keep the 10 a.m. Any times that the National Weather Service, our host, is not available?
The week of the 20th is good. The 20th or 21st, that Monday or Tuesday.
Anybody object to either the 20th or the 21st?
Tuesday sounds good to me then.
Tuesday?
Yeah,
20
Tuesday's fine. Yeah.
So April 21st, 10 a.m.
May.
May, sorry, I keep thinking May 21st, 10 a.m. Okay, let's set it. Set the date.
Sounds good.
Okay. And of course, if anything comes up, any other announcements, feel free to email out. We'd appreciate that if there's anything going on. So, if there's nothing else from anybody, I think we should conclude our call. And I really appreciate everybody's time, and thank you. See you guys later.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.